program or food stamp or whatever, the senior program, the hot lunch program, all of that's gone out of it, and now we're talking about just the ag portion of it. And the House passed that bill on a partisan basis. Congressman Cramer was one of those voting for it. Congressman Cramer, good to have you on News and Views.
Always good to be with you, Joel. Just for full disclosure, I'm in Tioga with 6 members of the House Energy and Commerce Committee touring facilities out here in the Bakken, showing them the other industry in North Dakota, and it's really fun to have them with us. But we did get a late start yesterday out of the Capitol because of the Farm Bill as you introduced it.
You bet. Well, I'll be up there next week. I'm going to Powers Lake, so I'll be up in the Tioga area.
You could come every week, Joel, and it looks different every time you come. It's so
that's the thing about it. Congressman, is this going to work? The strategy that the House Republicans have, is this going to create farm policy that will last?
Well, I believe it will, Joel, and the reason I believe that is because if we didn't do it, we'd still be at the 25-yard line instead of the 50-yard line. So even for those people who don't feel like we can defend the separating the food stamps from the farm portion, at least we have to acknowledge we passed a farm bill that moves the ball from the 25, this is my analogy, 25-yard line to the 50-yard line. Now we'll see what's next. Frankly, I think a lot of the chest pounding and positioning, some of which was accurate, most of which on both sides probably was not. I think that subsides now. I think now that this part of this battle in the war is done, and cooler heads will prevail, and we'll get to a conference committee. One thing, though, I think is really important for people to understand, and I don't think conservatives understand it very well, and I don't think liberals have understood it very well. Food stamps, the nutrition programs are permanent law. That was a negotiated deal in welfare reform back in the 90s with Bill Clinton and the Republican majorities. So that's mandatory spending. Separating them out of the Farm Bill doesn't mean that we cut anything. In fact, it means just the contrary. It means, much to the consternation of conservatives, I would think, it actually means we don't get reforms in food stamps anymore. It just continues to grow. It's grown at a rate of 100% in the last 5 years. So for those that feel like we've abandoned food stamps, we have not. They're still permanent law. We'll deal with them in a separate measure, hopefully as recently as as soon as next week or shortly after.
Haven't we now turned farm policy into strictly a partisan issue then?
Well, we tried a bipartisan bill, Joel, and we couldn't get enough votes to pass it. I don't know that we have, quite honestly. Look, there's a new Congress every 2 years. Things change over the course of years. The tradition of having these two things married together for decades, I don't know whether it's over or not because there's still a conference committee to go to. I suspect that it'll get put back together and it'll come back much like we're familiar with. But if it does not, Joel, I don't think it's a strictly partisan issue because every 2 years we have to make our case for whatever policies we need to make. In 5 years we'll have another shot at a farm bill, and assuming we pass this one. But here's the other thing I think that people should remember. The other amendment in this bill is that we repealed the 1949 law and made the 2013 law the permanent law. Now, some bemoan that and say, well, we've lost our strategic edge because we always had that hammer, that threat of going back to 1949 law as a reason to have a new law. Well, do we really want to govern that way? Or do we want to modernize our policies to match the modernization of agriculture? And with 2013 law, with the crop insurance program being now the hallmark of ag policy, I think we have a better permanent law if that's what it does become. So I'm not afraid of it, Joel. Is it ideal? Would I have concocted this? No, I would not have concocted this. But being a realist and realizing that we are a diverse body and a diverse nation, this moves the ball to the 50-yard line, and I think we ought to defend it and take it on. And when it comes back in some new form, again, being optimistic about a conference committee, hopefully we can get more Democrat votes, even if we lose some Republican votes, and have a more bipartisan solution at the end.
But even if what you're saying is, with your analogy of the 25 to the 50, okay, so what you're looking at is a farm policy for right now. A farm bill for right now, but by separation of all of these groups, by people who in a bipartisan way have supported each other through the years, haven't we put ourselves in a position now where, okay, you got it through the House. You know the Senate isn't going to pass it. We end up sitting there, and then it comes down to, is the Senate lying? Are they bluffing on whether or not they won't allow an extension? And then we revert back to other laws. And Congressman, here's the one that concerns me the most. I have a lot of friends who raise sugar beets, for example, or
Yes.
did for years.
Mhm.
And then know that sugar beet farming became quite expensive, equipment-wise, time-wise, labor-wise. They rent out that sugar beet land, okay? So they rent out that sugar beet land, or the right to grow sugar beets to bigger farmers. They're already hearing from the co-ops that the 2014 price is going down the drain. And so these farmers are all worried they're going to be back in the I'm raising sugar beets portion. Do you see what I'm getting at? Because they already sense that in the end, all of this jockeying and maneuvering isn't going to do anything. And Kevin, you must get what I'm getting at. I mean, these farmers I'm talking to are ticked off.
Joel, I haven't had a single farmer call me yet that didn't support exactly what happened yesterday, and including some farm organizations whose national organizations opposed it. But at the state level in North Dakota, they're supportive at the very least of moving the ball forward. Because if we didn't pass that bill yesterday, we don't have anything to talk about today, and the Senate and the House don't have anything to reconcile between them. And is it a perfect world? Of course not. But if we can't defend the value, the policy value of every idea every couple of years, I'm not sure that I'm not sure what it is we're arguing for. The House of Representatives is a very deliberative body. It is not the Senate. It is not a club. It is not it's not the same thing. So you have to be able to be more nimble, and especially in contemporary politics. So my point is that even, let's just say that the House prevailed, and I don't believe it's going to, and this is going to be the new policy going forward, that they're not going to have food stamps married in these coalitions. Every time you pass a bill, you have to get a majority coalition. Every time. So, what things change, we need to be able to change with it. And in 5 years, maybe there's a whole different coalition that comes together with agriculture policy. But here's the one thing that does, I think, warm my heart, in the sense that agriculture is the popular kid on the block right now. It's more popular than these food stamp programs, and food stamps may very well need agriculture more than agriculture needs food stamps right now.
Well, and that's clock's going to get us, Congressman, and you got people you got to show Tioga to. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
We'll stay in touch, Joel, and hope for the best as we go forward.
Yeah, and even though you and I disagree, I really do appreciate you coming on, Kevin. I do.
Always a pleasure.